My husband betrayed me with a dancer, and later threw a birthday party for me, where he announced that she was expecting his child. His sister helped me expose the truth in front of his entire family. My name is Name, and my husband's name is Cole. We had been married for 8 years. Our relationship began when I was 28, during a very difficult time in my life. I was grieving the loss of my father. Losing a parent leaves behind a deep sense of loneliness and emptiness. And emotionally, I was in a very fragile state. That's when Cole entered my life. A charming, older man who always seemed to know exactly what to say to lift my spirits and make me feel better. At first, our love story felt like something out of a movie picture perfect. Maybe that's why I fell for him so quickly. Back then, he was everything I ever wanted in a partner: reliable, caring, and genuinely attentive. We went on amazing dates, and he always acted like a true gentleman. Even my mom was impressed with him from the very beginning. When I met his parents, there was a bit of tension at first, mostly because we came from different cultural backgrounds, but over time they gradually warmed up to me. I also quickly became close with his sister Kylie. We bonded almost instantly and grew very close. We would talk all the time, go shopping together, or grab lunch. Kylie became the sister I had always dreamed of but never had. We shared everything with each other, and I still feel incredibly grateful to have her in my life. Cole and I were still in the honeymoon phase of our relationship when he decided to propose. He completely caught me off guard by organizing a surprise party and inviting all our close friends and family to witness the moment. Without a second thought, I said yes. I still remember the smiles on everyone's faces as they kept telling us how perfect we were for each other. For a long time, I truly believed that. Our wedding went smoothly, and we spent our honeymoon in Mexico. But once we returned home, reality hit hard. Moving into his house turned out to be a real challenge. Cole was deeply attached to his belongings and didn't want me to change anything in the living room or the bedroom. I tried to compromise by suggesting that I slowly add a few personal touches to the space, so he could get used to the changes. However, a new issue soon appeared. He wasn't happy about the size of my wardrobe. He claimed no reasonable person needed that many clothes. Even though I wasn't a fashion blogger or influencer, like most women, I had items I simply didn't want to part with. Cole insisted that I downsize my wardrobe significantly because he didn't want me taking up half the space in the closet. Understanding his concern, I agreed. I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable in his own home. Instead of keeping my clothes in the bedroom, I decided to turn the guest room into my personal wardrobe space. But soon another issue came up. Cole didn't like the magnets I kept on the fridge. Ever since I was a child, I had dreamed of exploring new places. So when I finally got a stable job, I made it a priority to save money and travel as much as possible. One of my little traditions was collecting magnets from every new destination I visited, and proudly placing them on the fridge as a reminder of my adventures. However, Cole always thought the magnets looked tacky. He firmly refused to let me display them on our refrigerator. This led to several heated arguments between us, but in the end, he convinced me that it wasn't worth starting our marriage with conflicts, so reluctantly, I agreed to let it go. For the first 2 years of our marriage, I spent a lot of time with family and friends. Cole, on the other hand, was more of a homebody, especially since he worked long hours and often felt exhausted. I've always loved socializing and meeting new people, so it wasn't a problem for me to go out on my own sometime. Despite our different lifestyles, we still made time for date nights twice a week, and I cherished those moments. Most evenings I preferred staying home with him, but occasionally I enjoyed catching up with friends too. Cole also had his own hobby. For example, he usually spent Sundays playing golf with his friends, and I was completely fine with that. However, during the 3rd year of our marriage, I started noticing changes in Cole's behavior. When we got married, we had both clearly agreed that we didn't want children, but suddenly, Cole started talking about how much he wanted to become a father, and how he dreamed of having a child with me. I was surprised and reminded him that we had made that decision together. We had both chosen a child-free life, but Cole would often make comments about imagining me pregnant, which made me feel deeply uncomfortable. More than once he suggested that we stop using contraception altogether, which scared me even more. It felt like he was trying to push me into becoming a parent against my will. I kept wondering why he had suddenly changed his mind, especially since just a year before, he said he loved the freedom and the lack of responsibility that came with not having children. But Cole became more and more insistent, telling me that once I got pregnant and quit my job, our marriage would be perfect. The thought of losing my job terrified me. So after consulting with my gynecologist, I decided to start taking birth control pill. Thankfully, it worked, and I didn't get pregnant. Meanwhile, Cole's behavior kept getting stranger. He began questioning me about where I was going and who I was spending time with whenever I planned to meet friends. He also started making comments about how I dressed, which surprised me because I had always worn pretty modest outfits. He would suggest I dress even more conservatively, even when I was wearing something as simple as a blouse and blazer. He claimed he was worried about what other women might think when they saw me out in public. At first I tried to ignore his comments, but then he became more persistent. Every time I was about to leave the house, he would ask me to change my outfit. This made me feel increasingly uncomfortable, and made me question what was really happening in our relationship. A few weeks later, I noticed that some of my favorite clothes were missing from my wardrobe. At first I thought I was imagining things, so I searched the entire house, hoping to find them. When I asked Cole if he knew anything about it, he claimed he had no idea. But one day, while cleaning out the garage, I accidentally stumbled upon my missing clothes hidden inside an empty box. I was furious and immediately demanded an explanation. At first, Cole denied everything, but I pointed out the obvious. We were the only two people living in the house, so it couldn't have been anyone else. After a long argument, he finally admitted that he had hidden some of my clothes to prevent me from wearing them when I went out with friends. I was shocked and deeply hurt by this. He tried to justify his actions by saying he just wanted to protect my reputation, claiming that some men judge women based on how they dress and might think poorly of them. I couldn't hold back my anger. I told him that he had absolutely no right to control what I chose to wear. I reminded him that in all 3 years of our marriage, I had always been loyal, so I couldn't understand why he was so worried about what other men might think. I made it very clear that no healthy relationship should involve this kind of control. Eventually, Cole apologized. Since this was the first major red flag in our relationship, I tried to convince myself that maybe he was just going through a rough patch. I decided to forgive him and move on. But unfortunately, things only got worse from there. I started noticing that messages from my friends and family were mysteriously disappearing from my phone. For example, if I had been chatting with my mom and we planned to meet up, a couple of days later I couldn't find any trace of our conversation. It left me confused. At first I thought it might be a phone glitch, so I updated the software to fix any possible issues. Then, one of my friends called to invite me to a small gathering she was organizing for close friends, and said she'd send me the invitation soon. But I never received. Later, when she called to ask why I hadn't replied, I explained that after our conversation I hadn't gotten any messages from her at all. During the party that weekend, she even showed me that she had indeed sent the invitation, but I had never received it. It felt really strange and unsettling. I began to suspect that my phone might have been hacked, so I decided to buy a new one. I tend to grow emotionally attached to my belongings, so I didn't want to sell the old phone, just in case it could still be fixed. During all this time, I kept telling Cole about the strange things happening with my phone, and he always acted just as puzzled as I was. But the day I bought the new phone, I didn't mention it to him right away. That night, I woke up feeling very thirsty, and went to the kitchen to get some water. When I walked into the living room, I saw my husband sitting on the couch, holding both my old and new phones in his hands. It took my eyes a few seconds to adjust to the darkness, but when they did, I saw him going through my phone. I was shocked and furious, and I raised my voice asking him what on earth he was doing. He flinched, clearly caught off guard by my sudden appearance. Then he started mumbling excuses, saying I had bought a new phone without telling him. He kept repeating that he should have never trusted. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what was happening, and then calmly explained to him that he already knew about the issues with my old phone, and that I had simply bought a new one, which I hadn't even set up yet. I told him he could have just waited until I mentioned it myself. The next day, I asked him again what exactly he had been doing with both of my phones in the middle of the night. Hesitantly, he tried to explain that he was just checking if there were any issues with my phone. I grabbed the phone from his hands and noticed that one of my chat conversations was open on the old device. It hit me like lightning. It was Cole who had been deleting my messages all along, which is why I hadn't received some of the invitations from friends and family. Meanwhile, he kept insisting that he couldn't sleep, so he went to the living room to watch TV and then randomly noticed my new phone on the nightstand and checked it out of curiosity. He claimed he was also going through my old phone to see if he could spot any technical problems I might have missed. I looked at him, my face blank, and directly asked if he had been deleting my messages. The moment I said it, Cole got visibly nervous and strongly denied it, calling the very idea absurd. He kept insisting that he would never do anything like that. But despite all his denials, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling that something was seriously wrong. I pointed out to him that he was clearly going through my messages in the middle of the night, so his denials made no sense. I couldn't understand why he would do something like this to me. I didn't even tell him that because of his deleting my messages, I'd missed out on meeting my friends and family. It felt like betrayal, and I couldn't wrap my head around why he would so subtly sabotage my relationships with the people close to me. I couldn't even look him in the eyes anymore. I felt disgusted, and decided to trust my instincts. I told Cole that this time he had crossed the line and that I needed some space. I started packing my things, planning to stay at my mom's for a while. He begged me not to leave, and eventually he admitted that he had deleted my messages just because he wanted to spend more time with me. I couldn't understand how he could justify such a violation of my privacy, especially considering I already spent plenty of time with him. Later, when I told my mom about what had happened, she agreed that his behavior was definitely strange, but she also said I was lucky to have a husband who still loved me so much after all these years, even if his actions were completely wrong. Despite her words, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and unease. My husband kept calling me non-stop like a madman and bombarded me with messages, ranging from tearful apologies to blaming me for making him feel like I was cheating on him. For the next few days, I kept my phone turned off and tried to distract myself by helping my mom around the house. I don't know why, but part of me felt there was something deeply wrong with Cole, while another part of me didn't know what to do about it. It was like I was too scared to fully admit the truth to myself. Luckily, Kylie came over to support me. She was just as shocked as I was about what her brother had done to me. I know some of you might think, of course she'd take her brother's side. Their family after all. But Kylie is the kind of woman who always stands up for what's right. She reassured me that my feelings were completely valid, because no husband should wake up in the middle of the night to snoop through his wife's phone and react the way Cole did, especially when I had never given him any reason to doubt me. She agreed that something wasn't right and promised to talk to him and figure things out. After our conversation, I felt a little better and hoped she could talk some sense into Cole. I turned my phone back on after talking to Kylie, feeling much calmer. However, I was immediately bombarded with angry messages from Cole. He was acting like a completely different person in some of the texts. He even threatened to file for divorce and leave me with nothing, just like, according to him, my father had done to my mother. It was so unlike him, and I couldn't understand what I had done to make him so furious. I also noticed that there were no new messages from him that day, so I thought maybe he had realized his mistake and was feeling guilty. I hoped he would eventually call me and that we could work things out. But 2 days later, Kylie called to tell me some news I wasn't likely to like. When she arrived, she looked absolutely furious and showed me photos on her phone, photos she had taken outside Cole's house. In the pictures, a young blonde woman was walking into our home. I couldn't understand what it meant until Kylie said the words, "Cole was cheating on me." It felt like the air was knocked right out of my lungs. I just shook my head while Kylie kept explaining that she had been watching this girl for the past 2 days, seeing her come and go from Cole's house, and that she suspected her brother was having an affair. I was shaking and nauseous. Kylie tried to hug me, but I pushed her away and ran to the bathroom. The world was spinning around me, and there was this dull pain pulsing in my head. I couldn't stop thinking, this can't be happening. There must be a simpler explanation. When I finally came out of the bathroom, Kylie looked deeply concerned, and my mom, whom Kylie had already told about the situation, was staring at me with both anger and heartbreak. I tried to force a laugh and told them maybe it was the cleaning lady or someone from Cole's work. But the more I tried to explain away why such a young woman would be visiting my husband while we were separated, the more pity and sorrow I saw in both Kylie's and my mom's eyes, and the sicker I felt. My mom gently sat me down on the couch, but I just stared at the floor. Kylie said she wanted to believe her brother hadn't cheated, but the evidence spoke for itself. Then she asked me if Cole had contacted me in the past 2 days. I shook my head. She stayed silent for a moment, and then the floodgates opened. I couldn't hold back the tear. I can't even describe the crushing sadness you feel when you realize your marriage is over. All I can say is that Kylie and my mom sat right there on the floor with me, each comforting me in their own way. When I finally pulled myself together,
My mom told me how sorry she was, that she had hoped my cowardly husband might change, and promised to help me find a good divorce lawyer. Kylie agreed, and said she wanted to find out more about the mysterious woman in case that information could help me with the divorce. I just nodded. The only thing I wanted was to sleep, so they left me alone in bed, so I could pretend this was all just a bad dream. But like anyone who's ever gone through betrayal knows, I woke up the next morning with a heavy ache in my chest, and the reality hit me all over again. The love of my life had betrayed me. Kylie sent me the same photos of the woman walking into our home. I zoomed in as much as I could, trying to process just how young she was. I couldn't believe that my pathetic husband, instead of talking to me like a normal person, had chosen to run to some random girl. That thought filled me with even more rage. If Cole thought he could do whatever he wanted, and I would just come crawling back to him, he was in for a rude awakening. I made up my mind. I would file for divorce and take everything I possibly could. My mom and I started looking for the best divorce lawyers in our area, and scheduled some consultations. Kylie kept checking in on me, calling all the time to see how I was holding up. And once I chose a lawyer, the very first thing I did, he said that we needed to hire a private investigator to gather as much evidence as possible, which would help me secure the best possible terms in the divorce. The PI's services weren't cheap, but I didn't regret spending the money. If it helped Cole understand that messing with me was a big mistake, it would be worth every cent. During all that time, Cole only texted me twice, and both times he asked whether I was ready to apologize to him. These messages only fueled my anger even more. I had so much I wanted to say to him, but I knew if I let it all out now, he'd realize I was preparing for divorce too soon, and I wanted to see his face when I handed him the papers. Cole never once bothered to come to my mother's house, probably because in his mind, he still believed that what he'd done with my phone was fully justified. Meanwhile, my lawyer told me that the PI had gathered plenty of solid evidence. Cole's relationship with the young woman looked serious, as they were meeting almost every single day. That made us think this wasn't just some random fling. This was a full-blown affair, one that had likely been going on for quite a while. Kylie also did some digging online, and after a few hours of searching, she discovered the young woman's name, Georgina. She was only 20. The most shocking part was that Georgina had a criminal record, and was actually wanted in another state for her involvement in a car theft ring, years ago, back when she was working for a gang. Knowing that my husband had an affair with a potential criminal was incredibly hard to swallow. Georgina was now working as a stripper and, without a doubt, was probably lying to everyone about her past. Kylie and I talked about the situation, and agreed that Cole needed to know the truth about the woman he was involved with. We decided to arrange a secret meeting with Cole's parents, without letting him know, so I could tell them everything. At first, Cole's parents, who had no idea about any of our marital issues, were absolutely shocked by what they heard. They told me that for weeks Cole had been lying to them, insisting everything at home was just fine. Kylie showed them the photos of Georgina, and we also had the additional evidence collected by the private investigator. Cole's parents were furious that their own son could do something so disgusting. His mother hugged me tightly and assured me that they were on my side. She expressed pure disgust at the fact that her son had chosen to have an affair with a stripper, and one with a criminal past, no less. We then came up with a plan to catch Cole red-handed, so his parents could be there to confront him directly. I would have handed him the divorce papers. My birthday was just a few days away, so Cole's parents took matters into their own hands. They called him right in front of me and insisted that he organize a big celebration for me, so that we could all gather together. Cole tried to get out of it, saying that I probably wouldn't like a big event, hoping his parents wouldn't find out what was really going on in our marriage. But his father insisted, saying that he had already spoken with me and that I had shared how I wanted to celebrate my birthday. Cole looked stunned when his father mentioned this, but in the end, he agreed to throw the party. Throughout the conversation, he didn't mention that we were no longer living together, or that he was seeing another woman. Later Cole tried to reach out to me, but I ignored him. Then he sent me a message saying that he wanted to organize a party for my birthday, and hoped we could leave the past behind for the sake of his parents. I replied, pretending that this idea wasn't originally ours, and told him how sweet it was of him to want to do this. I said I would gladly attend the party on my birthday. I brought the divorce papers and the photographs from the private investigator, just in case Cole refused to admit his affair. When my mom and I arrived at Cole's house, he didn't even try to hug me. He simply gave me and my mom a dry smile. We entered the house, and I immediately saw that the person hadn't put any effort into decorating for the party. The place looked like a dorm room, gray balloons scattered haphazardly in the living room, and the living room itself was terribly dirty. I went into the kitchen and saw a pile of dirty dishes. Cole had ordered pizza for refreshments, which almost made me laugh. When his parents arrived, Cole greeted them, and we all pretended like everything was normal, waiting for the right moment to confront him with the truth. When Kylie showed up, she brought me presents, and then we all sat down at the table, pretending to have casual conversations. We cut the cake, and everyone wished me a happy birthday. Then Cole suddenly said that he had been wanting to share something for a long time, and decided that this was the perfect moment. He began by saying that no one knew this, but he had been unhappy in our marriage, because I was allegedly emotional. He said that I had been cruel to him and never considered his feelings. He claimed that I had manipulated him, making him doubt himself, and that I had never been a good wife to him. Then he said that he had recently found out that I had cheated on him when he caught me with another phone, and after he confronted me about it, I left him. He paused dramatically and continued, saying that if it weren't for Georgina, he wouldn't have been able to survive the last few months of our crumbling marriage. He told us how he met her 6 months ago, and how one thing led to another, making him realize how badly I had treated him. Then he announced that since I left, he and Georgina had spent more and more time together, and they had recently found out that she was 2 months pregnant. My eyes widened in shock as this was new information that I wasn't prepared for. I turned to Kylie and her mouth was also open in disbelief. Cole kept talking, saying that as a woman I had failed, not being a good wife to him, but he was lucky to have met Georgina, and now he hoped his parents would accept her. My mom, who had been holding back her anger until this moment, finally snapped. She stood up from her chair and poured a glass of Sprite straight into Cole's face, shouting at him about what a worthless person he was. Cole looked stunned, and Georgina appeared frightened. Then Kylie yelled at Cole saying that his game was over, and that we all knew about his affair with that woman. Kylie went on to tell him everything she had discovered about Georgina, excluding the fact that she was wanted in another state for car theft. I can't describe the satisfaction I felt watching the light leave my husband's face, as he started to panic. That's when I knew it was the perfect moment to hand him the divorce papers. I took the documents from my coat, walked across the table, and handed them to him. I solemnly declared that it was over, and now that he had publicly confessed to his affair, I was going to take everything he had. My mom and I apologized and left, leaving his parents and Kylie to continue their conversation with him. I was finally ready to end things with him and all this drama, not intending to stay there for another minute. During the entire trip home, my mom kept talking about how proud she was that she raised me to be such a strong woman. I didn't know exactly what Kylie and her parents told Cole, but it must have been something serious because he wouldn't stop calling and texting me, begging to talk to him. The next morning, I woke up and saw almost 80 messages from Cole, where he begged me to come back to him and promised that he would change. He wrote that he was ready to go to family therapy and that if I truly loved him, I shouldn't give up so easily. If you had asked me a year ago if I ever thought about divorcing Cole, my answer would have been no. However, now, everything has changed, and I know I'm on the right path. Although my mind is sure of my decision, my heart still feels sadness towards him, especially when I see his desperate messages about how he can't live without me and how he always dreamed of growing old together. But I can't trust my heart. I really did the right thing by exposing my husband's double life to his family, and finally filing for divorce. Now I suggest you share your opinion in the comments, and we move on to the update. Update 1. I received many messages criticizing me for even considering forgiving this person. I understand, people. I'm not going back to Cole. I admit, when I wrote that post, I felt a little guilty. However, now that guilt is gone, and I won't let my husband's foolish words affect me anymore. Many of you are saying that I should just block him, but I can't. My lawyer advised me to keep all communication channels open until the divorce is finalized. Many of you also pointed out that Cole is still lying, and probably had an affair with this Georgina, or another woman, which is why he became so controlling and possessive of his life. Update 2. A few months have passed since my last update. For those who asked, I did an STD test. I'm happy to report that everything is clean. Now about the divorce. It's still ongoing. Cole's lawyer keeps finding excuses to drag the process out, which is incredibly annoying, but my lawyer and I are determined not to give up. Cole's lawyer is trying to make sure I get nothing, but I paid for all the repairs in the house during our 3 years of marriage. I painted the walls myself, and arranged the basement so he could have his man cave there. I paid half of the loan for his car, and bought groceries every week, so I deserve a share, and we will do everything to make sure I get it. Kylie and Cole's parents continue to stay in touch with. Last month, I met with Kylie, and she shared some happy news. She's engaged, and the wedding will take place in the coming months. She already invited me. I don't know if I should go because I don't want to see Cole, but Kylie insists she wants me there on her big day. Kylie also told me that Cole and Georgina broke up, probably after the scandal at my birthday party. Georgina admitted to him that she had slept with several men, so there was no guarantee the child was him. After that she ran off with another man, God knows where, probably scared that we might call the police. Cole was shocked by this, and blamed me for everything, but his parents scolded him again, and reminded him that he was the one to blame. Honestly, I don't care at all about his feelings or their breakup, and I hope in the next update, I can talk to Cole's parents and get them to help me convince him to finalize the divorce as soon as possible so I can finally leave all of this behind. Update 3. Guys, I did it. I got divorced. I can't believe I'm finally free. Cole and his lawyer did everything to drag out our case, but the judge just got tired of it. In the end, Cole agreed to give me everything I was asking for. It turns out that Cole's parents talked to him again, and threatened to cut him off from the inheritance if he didn't finalize the divorce and stop all these petty disputes. I'm incredibly happy, and tonight, I'm finally going to go out and have a blast with my friends. I also invited Kylie. I want to thank everyone who has been following my story and sent words of support in messages throughout this whole process. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments about this story. In my opinion, their marriage was likely over when he wanted a child, and when two people have different plans for the future, there's nothing left to discuss, especially when it's something as important as having children. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know if you agree, and check out our previous video here. Good luck.